Okay, so Inside Out has been out for a few days at this point, so now let's talk about it. And yes, for those of you who have noticed, I am in fact wearing my shirt Inside Out. Because I'm doing a spoiler for a movie called Inside Out, so I was just thinking, why not, right? So I will start off by saying I was very excited to see this movie when it was first announced. Because unless you never had a childhood, you have seen and grown up with the Disney and Pixar movies as I have. A lot of the movies they have done are some of the best animated films ever made. However, I feel like the last great Pixar movie that was made was Toy Story 3, and this movie came out 5 years ago now. Since then, Pixar has still been making movies, of course, but I think I speak for everyone out there when I say they haven't been very good lately. Cars 2 came out in 2011, and I feel that was the first bad movie that Disney and Pixar ever made. It showed us that they are in fact not immortal, they can make bad movies. Then in 2012 they made Brave, which I personally found something that kids would really love, but not really something that the older audience is really going to enjoy, and that's something that Pixar has always lived up to. So I still didn't think Brave was really up there with some of the great Pixar movies. Then in 2013 they made Monsters University, which I did feel was a good movie, but still not up to the standard that we all hold Pixar to at this point. However, I still went into this movie highly optimistic because, like I said, Pixar has released some amazing movies in the past. To name a few, the Toy Story trilogy, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, and to add to that list, Inside Out. This movie was phenomenal! It was so awesome! I am so stoked to tell you all that this movie was just... It's everything I could have ever asked for in a Pixar movie. And now I simply feel I should just tell you all in spoilage detail why I think this is such an awesome movie and what I loved about it. That's my official spoiler warning. If you have not seen Inside Out yet, seriously though, go see Inside Out before you watch this video. On that note, let's do this. So the movie centers around a young girl named Riley and how the emotions and memories in her head allow her to feel and remember the way that she does. And about the first 10 minutes of the film shows her growing up from when she's a baby to around the point when she's 11 years old. During that time, we're introduced to the 5 emotions in her head and the roles they play in helping her function in life. The main emotion is joy, voiced by Amy Poehler. Joy is someone who always stays positive, always looks for the bright side in every situation, no matter how bleak it might be. The emotion fear keeps Riley safe through all his overthinking and paranoia that always gets to him. He's the one who overthinks everything, worries about everything, is scared of everything. And it's really funny seeing how he needs to direct Riley through everything in life, always preparing for the worst situation. Disgust is another emotion, and her purpose is to keep Riley from being poisoned, whether it's from food she doesn't like, or annoying people, or bad situations, whatever it might be. And anger's goal is to make sure Riley's life is kept fairly through allowing her to express herself when she's mad about situations she's put in. And Anger just might have been my favorite character in this whole movie, because I really love the characters that are very ill-tempered, get mad about everything, come up with ideas without really thinking them through. It leads to some really funny situations in this movie, and honestly, Anger delivered some of the funniest moments in this movie. And obviously Pixar is used to having at least a few characters that are able to make you laugh whenever they're on screen. Anger in this case I thought was the main one. And finally there's Sadness, and she along with Joy, they're not really sure what purpose she should really be fulfilling with Riley. And I really liked seeing that. It makes you stop and think what Joy is feeling. She's wondering, it's like, why would anyone need sadness in their life? Why would someone want to express depression and sorrow and just, woe is me attitude all the time? Because a lot of people really express you should be positive in life, you should smile more, you should just be happy to be alive and to live your life. You shouldn't really express sadness. So I was really interested to see where would this story go with Sadness, what role she would eventually play into this movie. But we'll touch more on that later. But altogether, these different emotions create various memories throughout Riley's life that relate to different emotions that she feels. Each memory is preserved in small orbs that are colored to correspond with the different emotions, and at the end of the day are sent through this lawn tube that eventually sent into the long-term memory section of her mind. The most important pieces to her mind, though, are her core memories. These memories power different islands that take place inside her mind that basically represent very important aspects about her, and also who she basically is as a person and what she values. These core memories are symbolized by Goofball, Family, Hockey, Friendship, and Honesty Island. And a lot of it is just so cool and so unique seeing the way her mind works. It's so clever seeing how her emotions are able to make her express the way she does. And it's so cool how showing that along the way we create memories that we look back on in our life and we say, these are the instances that made me who I am today and why I care about these ideas so much. It was such a smart concept by Pixar, and it was so awesome to see in this movie. And Riley seems to be living a really great life until her dad's job requires her and her family to move from Minnesota to San Francisco. And no move is easy for anyone to deal with, especially when you're a kid. In this case, Riley really isn't placed into the best scenario either. I mean, she's placed into this really small room, the family's moving van won't reach them until who knows how long, and the only pizza place in San Francisco near them only serves vegetarian food. Okay, I know this is a very fictional movie, but no pizza place only serves vegetarian pizza and is still in business. I mean, it just does not work that way. That much is absolutely 100% certain. During this whole time, Joy is operating Riley's control system in her mind with the point of trying to make her feel happy and trying to make her feel good and stay optimistic about this whole moving situation. Along with the hope that she'll be able to create some more good, happy memories for her throughout this whole situation. However, sadness continues to try to touch these different memories of her, which causes Riley to perceive them in a more negative light, in a more sad opinion. And it really makes you stop and wonder, why is sadness trying to interfere with joy? Why is she trying to make Riley feel more sad than happy? What would be the point of that? Because Joy points out that once sadness places her hand on one of the happy memories, it will immediately turn sad and it cannot be turned back by Joy. Riley will just perceive these memories as being sad for the rest of her life. So in order to keep sadness from doing anything that could make Riley feel sad at all, Joy basically assigns her to stay in one area of the headquarters to contain the sadness into just one little circle that she has her stay in. All the while reading mind manuals, all the while herself and every other emotion is a lot more involved with Riley's brain. Essentially, Joy wants sadness to see the bright side by assigning her to do the boring job that nobody wants to do and completely excluding her from everybody else. But that's none of my business. So now we get to the first day at the new school for Riley. And Fear, of course, freaks out because the teacher calls on her to stand in front of the class to tell them a little bit about herself. It's really funny to see him be like, wait, what if she asks this? What if they laugh at us? What if a meteor comes down and destroys the school? What could happen? I can tell you, the most paranoid person is going to watch this movie, see him, and be like, well, at least I'm not all bad. So to help Riley out, Joy tries playing a happy memory of hockey for Riley to tell to the class. But once again, sadness touches this memory, which now causes Riley to view it in a sad light, which causes her to cry in front of everyone that's there. Which Disgust now acknowledges is probably the worst way you could ever start the first day of school, especially when you have the popular kid standing right over there next to you, looking at you and now judging you. Not only that, but this now leads to a new core memory being formed, this one being represented as a sad memory. Joy now attempts to prevent the sad core memory from eventually being activated, which she does. But it only sends herself, sadness, and the 5 core memories up through the memory chute into Riley's long-term memory, leaving them out of the headquarters and the 5 islands unpowered. So now only fear, disgust, and anger are the only ones there to control Riley's mind and express her the way she needs to feel. And this leads to one of the funniest moments in the whole movie. Because when Riley's mother is asking her about school, fear and disgust can basically only make her sound annoyed or nervous to really even respond to the question in general. And then it gets to the point where we see the emotions in her mother and her father's head and see how they're reacting to the whole situation. Her mom is, of course, trying to signal her dad through these little eye glances to, hey, you want to help me out here a little bit? And in his mind, he has no idea what's even going on in this situation because he just wasn't paying attention. So, of course, he just asks what she already asked. How was school, Riley? I just find this so funny to see because it's one of those it's funny, it's true moments because you see this with every couple that has ever been. The woman will try to give the man some kind of signal without even talking. Of course, the man has absolutely no idea what she's even getting at. Back in Riley's mind, it just eventually gets to the point where anger just takes over and he just has her snap at both of her parents to the point where her father puts his foot down and he says, you know what, go up to your room. And after that whole incident occurs, we officially see one of her islands, the Goofball Island, just crumble into nothing and just fall into the abyss. Joy and sadness witness this happen in long-term memory, and now they officially realize how urgent it is that they get back to the headquarters. Luckily, however, sadness knows a way back from all those mind manuals that Joy assigned her to read. Along the way, they run into Forgetters, whose job is basically to take Riley's fading memories that they find in long-term memory and just send them down this really dark abyss. This abyss is basically known as the Dump, and it's eventually where memories just break down and just fade away and become completely forgotten. And not only did I find that concept really interesting in showing the fact that this is why sometimes we don't remember things that just happened way back when in our lives, But one thing they do that I found really funny is they find this old gum commercial in her long-term memory that they just frequently send up to the control center from time to time just to play in Riley's head and non-stop annoying just so she frequently plays the song in her head all day. So apparently now we all have the answer to why when we hear an annoying song in our head we just can't help but sing it or hum it or whatever it might be because it's just stuck up there. Keep that in mind next time an awful artist gets stuck into your head. Celia, sorry. In the meantime, Riley is currently Skyping one of her old friends from back home, and she's telling Riley how a new girl has apparently joined the hockey team. And she goes on to say how she's been playing really well for the team and how she and her have been becoming really, really close friends. And of course, anger takes control of the control center in Riley's mind, and he is literally heated. I say literally because his head starts literally shooting fire out of it to signify just how mad he really is. And he has to say what we're all thinking in that situation. It's like, really? Are you like unaware that your friend has just moved away from Minnesota? She is now somewhere where she's not exactly happy, and now you're going to tell her that she's already basically being replaced by somebody? It's like, you gotta at least consider that's not something she'll probably want to hear about. And now it's this whole situation that eventually causes Friendship Island in her mind to crumble as well. So now Joy and Sadness are still trying to find the way to get back to headquarters, and along the way they run into Riley's old imaginary friend Bin Bon. And he's basically this pink elephant looking thing, and he's now really stoked with the idea that he could potentially be remembered by Riley again, so he agrees to immediately help them. He lets them know about the train of thought, which is basically this train that can directly lead them right back to the headquarters rather than having them walk the whole way. The next train stop is in Imagination Land of Riley's brain, and he says, hey, I can help us get there really fast. I know a shortcut how to get there. He eventually shows them where it is, but Sadness starts to implore Joy we should not go in there. She talks about how she read somewhere in the mind manuals that this is not safe to go in. This could eventually make things just that much worse for them. It's best to just take the long way and go that way. I mean, you would think for a second that maybe they'd at least consider listening to her, considering the fact that she's the one who read the mind manuals, and she knows basically the lay of the land better than Joy certainly does at least. But nope, everyone is just so content on the idea of it being a shortcut that they're just going to ignore her and go with it. Poor Sadness. And they realize Sadness was right because they've now basically walked into the realm of abstract thought where they are basically being reduced into nothing but straight lines, soon going to be reduced to nothing at all, just big floaty clump space of nothing. Fortunately, however, they're able to get out of the realm of abstract thought, they're able to turn back into their normal forms, but they miss the train. So now they have to venture through Imagination Land, and they find basically everything that had to do with Riley's preschool memory is basically being destroyed, it's being thrown into the dump, and Bing Bon just breaks down crying. However, Joy sees Sadness make Bing Bon feel better by acknowledging his sadness and consoling him for feeling that way. And it all begins us to finally see that maybe Sadness has more purpose than we originally thought she might. Joy begins to see that too, and she's so surprised that, her being happy and expressing positive energy wasn't really what was able to make him feel better, but someone sharing a mutual sadness with him was. And now we switch back to Riley, who's now trying out for the new hockey team in her town. But without her core memory, she has absolutely no idea how to really play hockey all that well, so she gets really angry, she quits the team right then and there, and she storms out. And with that, Hockey Island is now the next island to start falling apart, which officially gives Anger the thought that there may not be any hope for her in San Francisco. He begins to think maybe there just isn't any happiness for her here, and we need to go back to Minnesota to try to create new core memories for her so she can be happy again. Fear and Disgust, however, they look at him and say, hey, I get what you're saying, but maybe we should let ourselves sleep on this. We should think about this more. This isn't the best move. Let's just let Riley go to sleep. We'll deal with it tomorrow. However, at this point, Joy, Sadness, and Bing Bon have boarded the thought train and they're on their way back to headquarters. Unfortunately, no, now that Riley has fallen asleep, the train of thought has just come to a stop because it just doesn't operate when she's asleep. So now they have to find a way to wake her back up. So now they need to go into dream production, which for me was a really, really awesome thing to see in this movie because the way dream production works in her mind is like a movie shoot. I mean, they have those who act in the dreams, they have those who film the dreams, they have those who edit it to make it look like, it's something that she's actually experiencing, which is just so amazing to see. It's incredible how Pixar was just able to make Riley's mind seem like a real, actual, functioning world. I'm sure it's going to make kids who see this movie stop and wonder and think that's honestly how their dreams are set up and that's how they work. So this dream is set up as Riley's first day of school, except it has it portraying her as her showing up in her underwear and her teeth just constantly falling out as she's talking to the class. Fear selected this dream though, so don't act too surprised. So now the three characters see this as their chance to wake up Riley from her dream. Joy and Sadness barge in like this big dog costume. Bing Bon starts like throwing balloons and confetti everywhere. They're trying to make it like a really exciting environment to wake her up from this dream. However, Sadness doesn't see this as the idea that's something that's going to wake Riley up. They feel like if we're going to wake her up, we have to scare her. And eventually their dog costume splits in half, which causes Riley to interpret in her dream her seeing like two halves of a dog, which is enough to nearly disturb her awake, as it would anybody. However, just before it can wake her up, security comes in and eventually takes all of them away to the subconscious, which is basically the prison area of the mind. And in the subconscious, they discover Jangles, who was this old birthday clown who's currently asleep, and they feel if the three of them can wake him up and get him into the dream production, he will almost certainly wake her up. Because at one point or another, every single kid in the world is afraid of clowns. They're able to lead Jangles out of the subconscious, and because he's this giant clown with a giant hammer in his hands, he's able to bust out of it, and he gets into the dream production, which of course frightens Riley enough to wake her up. So now the three characters can now once again board the train and make their way back to headquarters. But in the meantime, Anger's starting to feel the reason Riley can't sleep is because all she can think about in her mind is Minnesota, and he begins to think, you know what? We're just going to have to go through this. We have to run away back to Minnesota. We have to get her back there. It's the only way she's going to live a happy life again. Riley now sneaks downstairs. She steals her mom's credit card from her purse, and she uses it with the intent of buying a bus ticket back to Minnesota. And just like that, Honesty Island is the next island to start falling apart. Only when this island starts to fall apart, so do the train tracks, so the train of thought begins to start crashing down with it, but luckily the three characters are able to escape to safety, and they're not going to get sucked into the abyss. The next morning, Riley has officially packed her things, and she's ready to leave her house, which now starts to cause the family island to start to quake. However, the quaking of the island exposes a memory tube that can lead Sadness, Joy, and the memory cores back into headquarters directly. Unfortunately though, only one of them can go back because it'll only fit one of them, so Joy feels it should be her and the core memories going back because she feels right now it is most important that she brings happiness into Riley's life. However, now the quaking officially breaks the tube itself. Joy and the core memories, they all fall through into the abyss with Bin Bon falling behind her in an attempt to save her. Now they're all in the memory dump and they're all going to fade away. While down there, Joy begins going back through some of the old memories of Riley's, and she finds one sad memory where Riley missed the game-winning goal in the playoffs in a hockey game. It was a play that cost her team the chance to go to the state championship, and now she's in a tree and she's sulking and she's sad and she's upset, and of course she's devastated. I mean, who couldn't be in that situation? However, Joy also notices in that memory Riley's parents and her teammates coming to console her and make her feel better and show that they still love her and they're still proud of her and their opinion of her just hasn't changed one bit. And Joy now officially realizes what Sadness does for Riley. Her purpose is to signal people when Riley needs help. So now Joy feels all the more determined to get out of the abyss, and luckily she and Bin Bon are able to find an old rocket that he and Riley would play with, which was powered by singing. So they feel if they can recite the song together, they can power it just long enough to get them out of the abyss. So they try it once, it doesn't work. And they try it again, and it doesn't work. And Bin Bon begins to realize, you know, maybe it's him who's weighing the rocket down, and that's why Joy can't get up there. So they try it a third time, and this time Bin Bon jumps off of the rocket at the last second, and Joy is able to get up on the top of the cliff. She's able to escape the abyss with the core memories with her. However, now Bin Bon has fallen back into the abyss, and he continues to fade away to the point where he just fades away completely, and now he is now forgotten in this memory. And it's one of those really sad, just heartfelt moments that just hits you where you live that Pixar has accomplished so well. I mean, honestly, I was sitting there in my chair when I was watching it, I'm just like, Bin Bon. But at the same time, it was such a symbolic scene to see because it represents how we're all going to have memories in our life that are going to weigh us down mentally, physically, emotionally, however you want to put it. And sometimes the best way into life is to just let them go. Let them be about the past. Don't worry about them. Forget about them. And just proceed with what you can become. So now as Joy sets out to get Sadness back, at this point, Riley is now in line to board the bus, and all the emotions that remain in her headquarters, they now realize this was a really, really bad idea. Unfortunately, the idea that they've planted into the control center has basically just taken over it completely. It shuts down the control center, and now they have no way of stopping Riley from doing what she's doing. Riley is now just sitting there on the bus completely emotionless. She's not feeling anything. Joy, however, is now officially able to find Sadness, but Sadness has officially come to the opinion that Riley is just better off without her, that Joy should just go on without her and just leave her in long-term memory. Joy, however, has now seen just how important Sadness is for Riley, and through the use of Imagination Land, Joy is able to clone a bunch of what appear to be Riley's ideal boyfriends. She clones a bunch of them, she has them form this giant kind of ladder, and through this she's able to reach Sadness, grab a hold of her on her floating cloud, and they're propelling back to the headquarters. So now they've finally made it back to the headquarters, but unfortunately all they've done is propel themselves into the windows, and they have no chance of getting inside because the windows are shut. Disgust, however, is able to get Anger really mad, like that was really much of a challenge anyway. And they're able to use his fire shooting head to burn a hole through the glass that allows them to pull up both sadness and joy and the core memories inside. So now they all finally allow Sadness to operate the control panel, which finally snaps Riley out of it. She realizes what she's doing is wrong. She gets off the bus and she runs back home to her parents. Sadness has Riley express honestly and tearfully how much she misses her old life, how much she misses home, how much this has been really tough for her, and just what she's dealing with. And through this, her parents are able to talk to her and comfort her and be there for her and let her know this isn't easy for us either. We miss a lot of Minnesota too. We want you to know, though, we are a family. We are going to stay together. We will be here for you. It's all going to be okay. They all hug it out, and now Joy and Sadness are able to make a brand new core memory through both of their emotions together. So now the movie takes place sometime later. The emotions in Riley's head are given a brand new control panel. It's upgraded. It's allowed to help Riley more through life and through puberty now. The 5 islands have been brought back, along with some new ones that have been made over the time. And the final scene shows Riley playing in a hockey game with her parents cheering her on in the crowds. And one thing that I noticed I thought was really, really funny is right before she goes out onto the ice, she eventually bumps into this boy, and in his mind, his emotions just going through an absolute panic and frenzy and start losing their mind just over the thought of a girl. I mean, the whole moment just made me want to reach out to this kid and just be like, don't worry, dude. I get you. Now Riley's emotions just truly feel, now with them all really working together, they can really give Riley the best life that she can possibly have. And then during the end credits, we get some funny moments where we see how the emotions for other people or beings are usually working. Like with dogs, it shows how their emotions get really excited about everything that comes to their mind, particularly when it has to do with food. And cats' emotions hardly ever do their job. They don't really do anything, and that's why cats always seem so emotionless towards everything, and they just don't really care. I don't know, I found it absurdly funny, and I laughed a lot at that. And then that's the end of the movie. So all in all, I thought Inside Out was an amazing, amazing movie. I have 0 flaws with it whatsoever. It is without question Pixar's best movie in years. It is definitely one of the best movies of this year. I mean, the only way I feel you couldn't like this movie is if you are just an emotionless robot. That is the only way you would not like this movie. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.